I found my surgeon's operation notes. The one word on every page made my blood run cold. Have you ever opened something you weren't supposed to open? I did. And what I saw wasn't blood, wasn't a medical error, wasn't a lawsuit or a lie written in code. It was a word, a single word, repeated on every page of my surgical notes, handwritten, in red, next to every incision, every suture, every decision he made inside my body. My surgeon left me a message, and when I understood what it meant, I realized my surgery was never about saving me. It was about something else, something he'd been doing for years. And I was just another one. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my favorite days. The clinic was always quieter. I could actually think, breathe, exist without the weight of the week crushing down on me. I was driving home from work. Windows cracked. That smell of wet asphalt filling the car. You know that smell, the one that makes you feel like the world just reset itself. Clean. New. I was thinking about dinner. Something simple. Maybe pasta. Maybe just cereal and silence. I didn't see the truck. They told me later it ran the red light. They told me I flew 15 feet. They told me my spine compressed on impact, that my ribs cracked like dry branches, that my left lung collapsed before the ambulance even arrived. But I don't remember any of that. I remember the sound, not the crash, not the screaming, not the sirens. I remember the sound of my own breathing, stopping, and then nothing. When I woke up, I wasn't in pain. That's the first thing that scared me. I was in a hospital bed, tubes coming out of places I didn't know tubes could go, and I felt nothing, just as heavy, empty numbness spreading through my chest like cold water. A nurse noticed my eyes were open. She smiled. That kind of smile people give you when they think you don't know how bad it really is. "You're awake," she said softly. "You've been out for 3 days. You're very lucky." Lucky. That word sat in my mouth like metal. She told me I'd been in surgery for 11 hours. That Dr. Raymond Collier, one of the best trauma surgeons in the state, had personally taken my case. That he'd reconstructed my chest cavity, repaired my spine, saved my life. "He's a miracle worker," she whispered, like she was telling me a secret. "You're going to be okay." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in her eyes told me she was trying to convince herself as much as she was trying to convince me. Dr. Collier came to see me the next morning. He was tall, older than I expected, maybe late 50s. Silver hair, perfectly combed. Expensive watch. Clean hands. The kind of hands that looked like they'd never touched anything dirty in their entire life. He stood at the foot of my bed and looked at me like I was a painting he'd just finished. Not a person. A project. "How are you feeling?" he asked. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. I managed a nod. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You're healing beautifully," he said. "The surgery went better than expected. You'll need physical therapy. Of course. Months of it. But you'll walk again. You'll live a full life." He paused, tilted his head slightly, like he was studying me. "You're very fortunate I was on call that night." There was something in the way he said it, not arrogant, not comforting, possessive, like I belonged to him now. I spent 6 weeks in that hospital. 6 weeks of tests, therapies, check-ins, medications I couldn't pronounce. 6 weeks of Dr. Collier visiting me every other day, always with that same calm smile, always asking the same questions. "Any pain? Any strange sensations? Do you feel different?" That last one always stuck with me. "Do you feel different?" Not, How do you feel? But do you feel different? Like he was looking for something, waiting for something. I always said no. But the truth was, I did feel different. I felt like something had been left inside me. Not physically, not a sponge or a surgical tool or some horror story you read about online. Something else. Like a presence. Like I wasn't alone in my own body anymore. I was discharged on a Thursday. They handed me a folder with my discharge papers, prescriptions, follow-up appointments. Standard stuff. I didn't look at it until I got home. I was sitting on my couch, finally back in my own space, finally breathing air that didn't smell like disinfectant, when I noticed something clipped to the inside of the folder. A small envelope, unmarked, sealed. I opened it. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. Your records for your peace of mind, Dr. C. I should have thrown it away. I should have called the hospital and asked why the hell my surgeon was giving me a USB drive with a handwritten note like we were in some kind of spy movie. But I didn't. I plugged it in. The drive had one folder. Inside that folder were scanned PDFs. Dozens of them. Surgical notes. Pre-op assessments. Procedure logs. Anesthesia records. My entire surgery. Documented in excruciating detail. I started reading. At first, it was just medical jargon. Terms I didn't understand. Diagrams of incisions. Timestamps. Drug dosages. But then, I saw it. Handwritten notes in the margins. In red ink. And on every single page, every single one, there was a word. The same word. Written next to every incision point. Every suture. Every decision he made. Chosen. I stared at that word for a long time. Chosen. What did that mean? Chosen for what? I scrolled through page after page. 10 pages. 20. 30. Every one of them had that word. Chosen. Sometimes circled. Sometimes underlined. Sometimes written so hard the pen had torn through the paper. My hand started shaking. I kept reading. And then I found something else. A separate document. Buried at the bottom of the folder. It was titled Patient Selection Criteria. I opened it. It was a list. A list of names. 37 names. And mine was at the bottom. Next to each name was a date, a procedure type, and a status. Most of them said complete. A few said ongoing. And three said terminated. I didn't understand. I didn't want to understand. But my brain was already putting it together. Already connecting the dots I didn't want to connect. I Googled the first name on the list. Sarah Hennigan. The search results loaded. And my stomach dropped. Local woman dies 3 months after routine surgery. I clicked the article. Sarah Hennigan, 34 years old. Car accident survivor. Treated by Dr. Raymond Collier. Died in her sleep. Cause of death. Unexplained cardiac arrest. I searched the second name. Marcus Delgado. Man suffers fatal seizure following successful spinal surgery. Treated by Dr. Raymond Collier. I searched the third name, the fourth, the fifth. Every single one of them had been his patient, and every single one of them was dead. I sat there in the dark, staring at my computer screen, and I realized something that made my blood turn to ice. I wasn't lucky. I wasn't saved. I was chosen, and I had no idea what that meant. But I knew that whatever Dr. Collier did to me during that surgery, whatever he wrote in red ink on every page of my notes, whatever criteria I meant to end up on that list, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. And the word chosen wasn't a compliment. It was a warning. I searched the sixth name, the seventh, the eighth. I opened tab after tab after tab until my screen was a graveyard of obituaries and news articles and smiling faces frozen in time. Every single person on that list had died within 6 months of their surgery. Every single one had been treated by Dr. Raymond Collier. Every single one had been declared a medical success story right up until the moment their heart stopped beating, or their brains shut down, or their bodies just gave up for reasons no one could explain. And the thing that made my skin crawl, the thing that made me want to vomit right there on my keyboard, was that every article used the same phrase. Lucky to be alive. They were lucky to be alive. Until they weren't. I scrolled back up to the top of the list and stared at the first name again. Sarah Hennigan. Died 3 months post-op. I looked at the second name. Marcus Delgado. Died 4 months post-op. I looked at the third. Jessica Cho. 2 months. The pattern was there. Clear as day. They all died. But not immediately. Not on the operating table where questions would be asked and investigations would be launched and Dr. Collier's perfect record would be shattered. No, they died later. Quietly. At home. In their sleep. Unexplained, tragic, unfortunate. And then I looked at my own name at the bottom of the list, the date of my surgery, 6 weeks ago. And next to my name, in that same red ink, was a single word that made everything inside me turn to stone. Ongoing. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that word. Ongoing. What did it mean? What was ongoing? What had he done to me? What was still happening inside my body right now, in this moment? As I sat in the dark, tried to understand why a surgeon would keep a list of patients who all ended up dead, I thought about calling the police. I thought about going to hospital and demanding answers. I thought about running, just packing a bag and disappearing and hoping that whatever this was, whatever Dr. Collier had planned, wouldn't find me. But I didn't do any of those things because I needed to know. I needed to understand. And I knew that if I went to the authorities with a USB drive and a list of names and a story about a word written in red ink, they'd think I was crazy. They'd think I was paranoid. They'd think the trauma of the accident had broken something in my brain, and I was seeing conspiracies where there were none. So I did the only thing I could do. I started digging. I spent the next 3 days doing nothing but research. I barely ate, barely moved. I just sat at my computer, and I dug into every corner of the internet I could find. I looked up Dr. Raymond Collier's history, his credentials, his career, his published papers. And what I found was a man who was respected, renowned, a pioneer in trauma surgery, someone who'd saved hundreds of lives. Someone who'd won awards and given lectures and trained other surgeons. Someone who was, by every measurable standard, a hero. But then I found something else. Buried deep in the archives of a medical journal from 15 years ago. A paper Dr. Collier had co-authored. The title was dense and technical, full of words I had to Google just to understand. But the subject was clear. Experimental neurostimulation during trauma surgery, the use of embedded microdevices to monitor and influence autonomic nervous system responses post-operation. The goal, according to the paper, was to improve recovery outcomes, to give surgeons real-time data on how a patient's body was healing, to catch complications before they became fatal. It was brilliant, groundbreaking, except the paper had a footnote, a small notation at the end that said the research had been discontinued due to ethical concerns raised by the review board. No further details. No explanation. Just discontinued. I sat back in my chair and stared at that word. Discontinued. But what if it wasn't? What if Dr. Collier had kept going? What if he'd found a way to continue his research outside the boundaries of official approval? What if every patient on that list, every person marked as chosen, had been part of an experiment they never consented to? What if he'd implanted something inside us? I stood up so fast my chair fell over. My hands went to my chest, to the scars that ran along my ribs like railroad tracks. I pressed down, felt the ridges of healed tissue, felt the faint ache that never fully went away. And then I felt something else, something small, something hard, right beneath the largest scar, right where Dr. Collier had made his primary incision. It was tiny, the size of a grain of rice, maybe smaller, but it was there. I could feel it, and the moment my fingers touched it, my entire body went cold. I went to a walk-in clinic the next day, told them I thought I had an infection at one of my surgical sites, asked them to do an x-ray. The technician was young, chatty, didn't ask many questions. She positioned me under the machine, told me to hold still, took the image, and then she frowned. She called in the doctor. The doctor looked at the screen, looked at me, looked back at the screen. He asked when I'd had surgery, who my surgeon was, whether I'd been informed about any implants or medical devices. I told him no. No one had said anything. He printed the x-ray and handed it to me, and there it was, a small, bright white dot, right beneath my scar, right where I'd felt that hard little object. The doctor said it looked like a foreign body, possibly a surgical clip or a marker, something left behind. Not uncommon, he assured me. Probably nothing to worry about. But I knew it wasn't a clip. It wasn't a marker. It was something else. And Dr. Collier had put it there on purpose. I went home and I called the hospital, asked to speak to Dr. Collier. They told me he was out of the country. A medical conference in Sweden. He'd be back in 2 weeks. I asked when he'd left. They said 4 days ago, right after my discharge, right after he gave me that USB drive. I hung up and I sat there and I felt the weight of realization settle over me like a heavy blanket. He knew I would find the files. He knew I would see the list. He knew I would start asking questions. And he'd left, not because he was scared, not because he was running, but because whatever he'd started inside me, whatever that device was doing, it was already too late to stop. He didn't need to be here. He just needed to wait. I started feeling it a week later. The headaches, the dizziness, the way my heart would skip beats for no reason, the way my hands would tremble when I tried to hold something, the way I'd lose time. Just small gaps at first, a few minutes here and there. I'd be sitting at my computer, and then suddenly I'd be in the kitchen with no memory of walking there. I'd be reading, and then I'd realize I'd been staring at the same page for 20 minutes without processing a single word. And then the dreams started, except they didn't feel like dreams. They felt like memories, memories that weren't mine. I saw operating rooms, surgical lights, faces looking down at me. I heard voices, Dr. Collier's voice, calm, steady, saying things I couldn't quite make out. And I felt things, sensations of being opened, of being touched, of being changed. I'd wake up gasping, covered in sweat, and I'd check the scars on my chest to make sure they were still healed, still closed. Because in those dreams and those memories, I wasn't healed. I was still on that table. And Dr. Collier was still inside me. I tried to find the others, the ones on the list whose status said ongoing. There were 4 of us, for people who were still alive. I tracked down 2 of them through social media, sent them messages, told them who I was, asked if they'd experienced anything strange since their surgeries with Dr. Collier. One of them blocked me immediately. The other responded 3 days later. Her message was short, just 2 sentences. Stop looking. It's too late. I wrote back, asked her what she meant, asked her if she'd found a device, if she'd felt different, if she'd had the dreams. She never responded, and 2 weeks later, I saw her obituary. died peacefully in her sleep, survived by her husband and 2 children. Services to be held at Grace Memorial. I stared at her picture, at her smiling face, at the date of death. Exactly 5 months after her surgery. I looked at my calendar. I'd been discharged 8 weeks ago, which meant I had less than 3 months. Less than 3 months before whatever Dr. Collier had planted inside me finished whatever it was designed to do. I went back to that walk-in clinic, begged them to remove the device, told them I didn't care about the risk, I didn't care about the cost, I just needed it out. They refused, said it would require a specialist, a surgeon, proper imaging and planning. They gave me referrals, told me to make appointments, told me it would take weeks. I didn't have weeks. I knew I didn't have weeks. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went back to the hospital where Dr. Collier worked. I told them I needed to see him, that it was urgent, that it was about my surgery. They told me he still wasn't back yet, that he'd extended his trip, that he wouldn't be available for another month. I asked who else could help me. They gave me names of other surgeons, other doctors, but I knew none of them would understand. None of them would know what they were looking at, because this wasn't standard. This wasn't protocol. This was Dr. Collier's work. And I was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, I was supposed to die. Maybe that was a point. Maybe chosen didn't mean special. Maybe it meant expendable. Maybe it meant test subject. Maybe it meant that whatever data the device was collecting, whatever experiment he was running, required us to die so he could study the results. And then I found the last piece. I was going through the files on the USB drive again, looking for anything I'd missed when I noticed something. One of the PDFs was corrupted. It wouldn't open properly, just showed a mess of symbols and glitched text. But buried in that mess was a file name, a string of numbers that looked like a date. I Googled it. It was a patent number. I looked it up, and there it was, a patent filed 12 years ago by Dr. Raymond Collier for a biointegrated monitoring system designed to track neurological responses in post-surgical patients. The patent described a device that could be implanted during surgery, a device that would dissolve over time, releasing compounds into the bloodstream, compounds that would enhance healing in the short term, but cause cascading failures in the long term. The patent claimed it was for research purposes only, that it could revolutionize how we understand a human body's response to trauma. But between the lines, in the technical jargon and the careful phrasing, I could see what it really was. It was a time bomb, a slow-acting, undetectable way to kill someone while making it look like natural causes. I'm writing this now because I don't know how much time I have left. The headaches are worse. The gaps in my memory are longer. This morning I woke up and didn't recognize my own apartment. It took me 10 minutes to remember where I was. 10 minutes of standing in my living room, staring at furniture I bought, pictures I hung, a life I built, and feeling like I was looking at a stranger's home. The device is dissolving. I can feel it, and as it dissolves, it's releasing whatever poison Dr. Collier designed it to release. I thought about going public, thought about taking everything I found to the media, to the police, to anyone who would listen. But who would believe me? A trauma patient with a head injury, and a story about a respected surgeon secretly killing his patients for research? They'd say I was delusional. They'd say I needed psychiatric help. They'd say the stress of recovery had broken me. And maybe they'd be right. Maybe I am broken. Maybe the accident did something to my brain that I can't see. Maybe Dr. Collier really is a hero, and I'm just a paranoid patient who found a USB drive and spun a conspiracy out of medical records I don't understand. But then I think about Sarah Hennigan, about Marcus Delgado, about Jessica Cho, about the woman who told me to stop looking, about the 37 names on that list. And I know this is real. I know Dr. Collier chose us for a reason. I know he's out there right now, probably sitting in some conference room in Sweden, giving a presentation about breakthrough surgical techniques, while people like me are dying in their sleep one by one, exactly on schedule. And I know that when I die, when my heart stops or my brain shuts down or my body just gives up, someone will write an obituary. They'll say I was brave. They'll say I fought hard. They'll say I was lucky to have survived as long as I did. And Dr. Collier will read it, and he'll add my name to his data, and he'll move on to the next one. The scariest part isn't dying. The scariest part is knowing that I'm not the last. There are more names being added to that list right now. More accidents, more surgeries, more people waking up in hospital beds, being told they're lucky, being told they're survivors, being told they're chosen. And they have no idea what that word really means. They have no idea that the man who saved their life is the same man who's going to end it. I try to warn them. I try to find a way to stop this. But I'm just one person, one dying person. And Dr. Collier is a system. He's awards and credentials and respect and power. He's everything I'm not. So I'm leaving this here, in this video, in these words, because maybe someone will listen. Maybe someone will dig deeper than I could. Maybe someone will find the others before it's too late. Or maybe no one will. Maybe this will just disappear into the endless noise of the internet. And I'll die, and Dr. Collier will keep going, and the list will keep growing, and no one will ever know. But at least I tried. At least I said something. At least when my name becomes another obituary, someone somewhere might remember that I wasn't just paranoid. I was right. And if you're watching this, if you made it this far, I need you to ask yourself something. Have you ever had surgery? Have you ever been told you were lucky? Have you ever felt different afterward? Not just physically, but different. Like something changed inside you that you can't explain. Because if you have, I need you to check. I need you to look at your records. I need you to ask questions. I need you to find out if your surgeon's name was Raymond Collier. And if it was, I need you to run. I don't know where. I don't know how. But you need to get that thing out of you before it's too late. Before you become another name on a list that no one will ever see. This isn't a story. This isn't fiction. This is happening right now to real people, and it could be happening to you. So ask yourself, do you feel different? Because if you do, you might be chosen too. And chosen isn't a gift. It's a death sentence. You just don't know it yet. Have you ever woken up from surgery and felt like something was left behind? Something you can't see but you know is there? If this story made your blood run cold, it's because somewhere deep down, you know it's possible. You know that the people we trust the most, the people who hold our lives in their hands, could be hiding something we're not meant to find. If you've ever questioned what really happened in that operating room, if you've ever felt like you weren't told the whole truth, drop a comment below. Tell me your story, because maybe you're not alone. Maybe there are more of us than we think. And if you made it to the end of this video, if you had the courage to hear the truth, then subscribe. But only if you're ready. Because once you start seeing the patterns, once you start asking the questions no one wants you to ask, there's no going back. The truth doesn't set you free. It just shows you how trapped you really were.